So today I'm going to talk about leverage. This is one of the most important concepts that I have learned about just to improve my life that I didn't really understand until fairly recently. And in this video, we're going to go over what leverage is and the 6 types of leverage. And this applies to things from entrepreneurship, business, research, any type of leadership. You need to know how to use leverage. And anybody who's been successful in any remote sense of the word, from Bill Gates to Elon Musk to, I don't know, Nikola Tesla to Terence Tao, they all knew the impact of this word leverage. And what does leverage actually mean? Like, it sounds like a boring word. You might have heard it in like high school physics, but it essentially means creating a bigger output than your input. So you can literally imagine a lever or like a seesaw, and by producing a certain fixed input, depending on how big your leverage is, you're able to create a bigger output. That's what leverage is all about. And quite often that comes into play in terms of finances. It can also come into play in terms of time, like you only work a fixed number of hours a week. So let's get into that more and like explain why you can only scale your income so much by working more, like scaling your salary. So let's say you're working in the UK, let's use pounds, we could have used dollars, and you're using like £15 an hour. The thing is, this isn't able to scale. Like, for example, if you're managing something or owning a company where you have multiple people working for you. So let's work through this. So let's say you're like working like £15 an hour, you're working 40 hours a week, and 50 weeks a year. If you do the maths on this and multiply everything out, you're gonna get to 30,000, because it's gonna be 2,000 times 15, £30,000 a year, which is like about, the average UK salary per year. Well, so let's say if you want to earn more income, you could do some like training, or you could try and work more. Let's say you try and just work more time. So the thing is, this doesn't scale very well. Let's say you work as hard as you can and you work 100 hours a week. You don't see your friends much, you don't take care of your health, you basically clock in and out of the office like every day, and you're working some weekends. And let's say you're at like a similar wage. So we went from 40 hours a week and 30k a year to 100 hours a week, and we're only going to be earning 75k a year, which is a pretty good salary in the UK, but it's not even getting up to some of the top salaries in the 1%. And if we were going to work 168 hours in a week, which is just like impossible unless you're a robot, which I don't know if some of you are, but hopefully not, you'd be earning, let's see, it would be 30 divided by 40, no, divided by 40 times 168, it's just 24 times 7. You'd be earning is 168 hours in a week, 168k in a year. And in a week, there's only, let's say, there's only 168 hours maximum. And you're not able to scale your time past that. Like, it's literally impossible to have more time than that. And as such, it's quite difficult to scale your income. But this is how most people think about, the primary income. This is what we've been taught for most of our lives. So you have like this core asset, like you do like university, maybe some courses to invest in yourself, increase your knowledge, maybe even courses in like soft skills and stuff like that. And you hope to increase your salary and then get to a higher wage. And you know what, like if you're around this area, you could be near like or within the top 1% of earners if you're working very hard. But the thing is, if you want to create a bigger impact than this, then you can't just work more hours. You need to learn what leverage is. And this comes into finances a lot as well. So let's talk about the first type of financial leverage, which is a bit different to the others because it's not as external as the others. So let's go back to our example before and say you're earning £15 an hour. The thing is, like, obviously your company that you're working for isn't making a profit of, like, is earning more money than that. Because if you're working for £15 an hour and they're only earning £15 an hour, then that's a pretty bad business because they're not making any profit. So they'll have other expenses as well, such as like capital. Maybe like if you work in a factory, they'll have machinery or like land for the shop. So you could like bracket that off for like investments, capital, but we're not going to do that for now. And let's just divide it between two simple numbers. So basically, that £15 an hour will be a chunk of the money that the company makes. But overall, let's say that you work in a shop where people buy £30 an hour of goods on average, or like in a restaurant or something like that. So for every 15 hours you work, the shop will gain like an equivalent also like £15 an hour. And this is what, like, on average over the whole economy, the economy is structured like right now. But the thing is, like, if you own this company, say this could be, I don't know, what's the shipping company? This could be Walmart, or Tesco, or the post office. This could be any company. But if you own this company, you don't actually have to put in that hour of work to get that £15. Literally just owning it, you're able to basically get free money. Well, not free money, but you don't have to work for it. It's not tied directly to your time, and that's the key thing about leverage. So yeah, and this comes into like some technical terms, like if you want to go into Marx kind of stuff, this is called like the exploitation of surplus value, because you generated £30 of income, of revenue, profit, of revenue, with your time, but only £15 went to you and £15 went to the company. And actually, interestingly, this ratio has been changing over time. Now it's about 50-50 in, 2026, but before it was more like 40-60, say like the 1980s globally. So it's more like 40% labor and then 60% capital. So this ratio is actually increasing, which makes it more and more difficult actually to get money from this labor part, and increases the power of these asset holders. And it's not just like investing into companies, like you might have heard of investing into the stock market, where you get a certain amount of returns. You can invest into property, like that's one of the simplest ones, because you're working as a landlord and everybody needs to buy a house, so you're literally able to produce rent, rent-seeking behavior, like collect rent for not much work, not much labor. So owning assets is really the purest form of having leverage, because if you're able to have assets, say, let's say you have, 100 million in your bank account, which is probably none of you or none of us watching or making this video. If you get like, 2-3% return on bonds, you're able to make an income of like 2 million to 3 million a year, literally just doing nothing, by just like having money and just collecting the money, which is great. Like you can just live off of that. So if you have enough, this leverage can literally pay for your whole life. But even in the bank account, you're a bit poorer than the 100 millionaire. I mean, there's only 8,000 billionaires in the world, so there's not many 100 millionaires. And you still have the same 2-3% returns, which is not very hard to get. You'll be earning 20 to 30k a year, which is also like maybe not enough to live off of completely, but it's a pretty good salary just investing it. And once you invest it, like you don't have to work like 40 hours a week, like 50 like weeks a year. You just profit off of that. So investing is the first route to essentially like financial freedom, and making sure those investments are diversified in case part of them crash. But yeah, like you can, these people are the most free in the world, basically. People who have assets, because their life is basically provided for by just earning stuff in the first place. Like almost like the kings and queens ages ago, but on a larger scale. So that kind of covers what leverage is as a concept. Like in general, you only have 168 weeks in a year, 168 hours in a week. So no matter what, you yourself cannot scale past that. So you need to invest into other things. Like, and we traditionally think about, you know, us scaling our income, which can be a pretty good way to, you know, earn a living. And university trains us to like, oh yes, if you go to university, you'll increase your income, you'll be able to live all right. But to create like a bigger impact or to have a greater income, you're not able to do that. So let's go over the 6 types of leverage now. So the important thing to consider is these are outside you. Like you can call this, I don't think you call it human capital, but you can call it like your core asset. Like it's related to your time, your knowledge, etc., etc. And there's only so much you can scale you. You can't make multiple versions of yourself. You can only work so many hours a week. So we already talked about financial leverage, and it's kind of a sneaky extra one. But let's say the basic one was investing. So investing into the stock market or property or other types of investment and getting a return. You don't have to work for it. It's not tire time. It's one type of leverage. So like, let's call that just like 0. The one that we talked about for yourself. The first one, proper one, is going to be also financial leverage, but it's from other people's finances. And this is what most commonly, if you hear the word leverage used in professional settings, is going to be something related to investing. And it essentially means taking on debt from other people. And like the most common way is that we talked about, like houses are a good investment, is getting a mortgage, for example. You'll say like, okay, I'll pay this thing for 20 years or 30 years, and then I'll pay you a certain amount of interest on this. And by the end, you have an asset which you're able to rent out, and then you can be one of these asset owners who generates income without that much effort, without that much time. And by basically placing a guarantee that you'll be working for that time and earning a certain salary to go into debt, you're borrowing money from a bank by giving them that promise. So you can create that promise to go into debt by multiple ways. Like if you're very risky, you might go into venture capital, and you might say, oh, I'll make you, I don't know, $1 billion company if you gave me slightly less money. You can go to a bank for more traditional investments, but you're essentially taking on debt, promising other people money, or promising that you can do a certain thing, and based on the certainty of that promise, somebody might lend you money. And the more secure the investment, the easier it is to get that money. So like a house is a pretty good investment, because like everybody needs a house, right? So it's easier to get a loan for that than say like another chicken shop company or something like that. So this is all about debt, and debt is all about promises. Okay, so the second type of leverage is time leverage, and this is like one of the most important ones, because we talked about scaling time, and this is related to the points we talked about before. But instead of just using your time, you're also able to use other people's time. So let's say that you have 5 employees or 4 employees. There's 5 of you in total. So you literally just multiplied how much you're able to work or how much you're able to do by 5 times, assuming you're all the same skill. So 5 times the people 5 times the time, and 5 times the output. And this doesn't have to be like an employee basis, maybe you're managing people, but in general, if you're able to control the direction of multiple people, you're able to do a lot more. So if you can convince people to work with you or pay them salaries to work for you, you're able to do a lot more and compete with bigger entities. But also this comes back to like the whole capital share and labor share. If you're thinking about like a company, somebody who owns the company, maybe they're profiting, like let's say 10 to 20% or to 50% of all the people working for them, and they're able to build a salary by just owning that company, because they're earning a little bit from each person. So time leverage is one of the most important things, because like you can only pretty much, like in realistic terms, double your time. But if you want to scale to have an impact beyond like £100,000 a year, say, you need to be able to manage more people, to be able to manage larger scales. And most large companies are much larger than 100,000, pounds a year. Like, can go up to 1 million, 100 million, 1 billion, and those always require more people. There's not much easier ways to scale. One way to scale, though, is systems and technology leverage. So we talked about increasing the output for like a given input. I often think about getting the same output now with a slightly smaller input. And the reason I think about this is because I think about efficiency, and this is usually what happens in like the short term. We're seeing this like with AI now in software. We had the Industrial Revolution where we made machines, for example, like the sewing machine. Instead of having to pay people to literally stand there with a needle and sew, you could just make a machine, and then you don't have to worry about its mental health, about health insurance, about feeding it or anything like that. You just have to feed it electricity. The same thing happened with computers. Computers used to be people, for example, for like the early space travel, and I'm not sure about the moon landing, but early space travel, at least, they were literally people like sitting in a room, and they had to be educated to be able to do all these orbital mechanics calculations. But now we have computers to do it. So computers are a great efficiency gain. So, and this ties to a thing called economic productivity, but in general, it's all about increasing efficiency. It doesn't have to be just through like technology. It can also be through systems. So like if, for example, you need to process an invoice every week, if you make a system for it, so that anybody can do it, somebody less skilled than you, or that it takes you less time, that also increases your efficiency. And what we said, maybe one way to think about it is less same output or less input, same output. Ideally, this is usually what happens in the short term, and then you end up with layoffs because you don't need those people anymore. You can go to same input and then more output. So like you don't really have to restructure, well, you have to restructure your company a bit to use those systems and technology. More output. But you're able to create more. And this is one of the things that greatly benefits society, because if we're able to produce more with all the resources we have, everybody gets more to go around. So systems and technology is really important as well. And generally you can do a lot with just one of these pieces of leverage, but if you combine them, then, even more output, even more things you're able to do, power, whatever. So fourth one is marketing leverage. So this is using other people's, magazines, newsletters, radio shows, emailing lists, social media channels. Instead of having to build up like a network yourself or a community, it's essentially using other people's access to communities or groups of people. So like, let's say you want to make, a healthcare brand, or like a brand for stationery, for pens, instead of directly creating a community or marketing. You can just be like, hey, like to a stationery YouTube channel, like, can I sponsor you and put this in front of your viewers, and I'll essentially work as like part of your marketing funnel at the top, and you get to put things in front of people's faces that you think they might be interested in, to create interest or show them value or things like that. So that's marketing leverage. And network leverage is similar, but it's about using other people's access to other people, usually on a smaller scale. So like, let's say you just have, this is you, and you have access to like certain people. Maybe you want to start like a, I don't know, like a medtech brand, but you don't know many doctors, but one of your friends went to, I don't know, good university. He might know some doctors, so through your friend, you can go and get a mutual connection. And so, yeah. And the last one is knowledge leverage. So we talked about quite often, especially in like a service-based economy, we think about increasing your own skills to be able to earn more money, maybe learn certain systems, certain software, certain ability to do certain calculations, and then you can work as like an engineer or a doctor or a lawyer. But there's only so much you can learn, so much time you have to learn stuff. So let's use this medtech example again. Like maybe you want to have somebody proposes you for like an investment idea, or you're interested in starting a company, and you have this idea, but you're not sure if it's working, if it's gonna work. Instead of doing all of this yourself, what you can do is you can ask like a friend. Like, oh, can you check this idea for me? So instead of having to do like 10 years of medical school to understand all the literature, like it's a 10-minute conversation. So using other people's knowledge can be very useful. You can use this as like an R&D setting, like research and development, to and pay people to use their knowledge to create new ideas, and use their knowledge without having to increase your own. And you can focus on other things. And this comes down to like diversification of outputs again. So we had 6 types of leverage. We have financial, time, systems and tech, marketing, network, and knowledge. And the thing is, like, I want to come back to this core point. Like, you can only scale your income so far by working more. Like, that's just the truth of it. And anybody who's wealthy, anybody who's able to create an impact valued beyond, say, like $1 million, £1 million a year, they know how to use leverage. They know how to increase their output. And even if you want to like increase your income to like some of these higher areas, like you could do it by like increasing your knowledge and skills, but quite often you're gonna have to use this concept of leverage anyway. For example, going into management, you're using time leverage. You're managing more people and you're managing a greater amount of value, amount of impact in a company. And that will come into like even in research, using other people's knowledge leverage. And like a professor will guide people. It comes a lot into leadership. And some of the like easiest types of leverage is like the first type of financial leverage, where you just have like investments, right? But as you notice, like all of these are outside of you, your core asset, your knowledge and your time. And you can see that they don't really take that much time. Like they take time to accumulate, but to actually use, they make everything a lot quicker. Like systems and tech, once you've done it, it's a lot more easy. Networking, knowledge, it cuts down on your time massively. It increases the amount of money you're able to earn massively. So in general, learn about leverage, please. I'm trying to too, because I'm trying to get access high levels of impact. Is something I've been learning about recently, and hopefully I've been able to explain it. If I got anything wrong, or if you'd like me to talk about stuff related to this, or you'd like me to change something in this video, please tell me, so I can learn how to make these videos better. But apart from that, thank you for watching. I hope you found this video useful, and if you did, let me know. Thanks.